just for the record. Nobody is more keen to return these Ugandans than we are. We are all concerned. But it is important that we prepare ourselves well. And where they really come in Entebbe, you'll find, and I thank God that yesterday the return of students school has been postponed because some of the quarantine areas we are thinking of are schools. If the children had returned, it would have complicated our exercise and further delayed it. But it is important that we have reception centers where they are going to be quarantined because everybody will have to be quarantined. And it is very important that we do that. So we are keen to bring them back as quickly as possible, but we cannot make it faster than the facilities to receive them can accommodate. Let me finish this. Let me finish this. KENZO will be part of the people who are coming from West Africa. He's stuck in Ivory Coast. I'm aware of it, Mr. KENZO. And actually, he may not be as desperate as those you are talking about in the Middle East. But we are trying to bring them back. And we are thinking that we could make Abuja the hub for West Africa. Then you can airlift them together. Rather than, it is impossible to pick each from every country. It's just a logistical nightmare. It's a logistical nightmare. Thank you. Right, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members.
Order, Honorable Members.
Government has taken the decision to allow Ugandans who have been stranded abroad due to the closure of the airport in Entebbe and our borders to return home in a phased but orderly manner. This decision was taken after careful consideration that are meant to balance the needs of bringing home these brothers and sisters of ours, but also ensure the safety of our people at home. Right Honorable Speaker, on the 11th of March 2020, the World Health Organization declared novel coronavirus, COVID-19, a global pandemic. And in his statement, the Director General of the World Health Organization expressed concern about the severity of the outbreak and the relative inaction by many countries around the world to try and halt the spread of the disease. In this regard, as a measure to forestall a possible outbreak of pandemic in Uganda, His Excellency the President, on Saturday, 21st March 2020, announced the immediate closure of Uganda's borders and the Entebbe International Airport effective midnight on Sunday, 22nd March. These closures were informed by an assessment done by the National Task Force on COVID-19, which concluded that imported cases posed the highest possible source of the outbreak and the pandemic in this country. Honourable members, while these closures were timely and done in the best interests of the country, they also created a parallel problem whereby several Ugandans who had traveled abroad on short visits for business, medical treatment, tourism, and other valid reasons got stranded either in the countries which they were visiting or in transit countries as they traveled back home. Additionally, honourable members, many Uganda students who had completed their studies abroad were not able to return home on account of these travel restrictions. In the Middle East, where many migrant workers got laid off from jobs due to economic slowdown brought by COVID-19, many Ugandans were not able to return home despite obtaining air tickets from their former employers. Indeed, the government has been aware of these resultant problems, but like we said before, it was of strategic importance to first secure the homeland base, as well as plan for the return of our fellow citizens who got out abroad. Honourable members, we know that many of these stranded Ugandans have now run short of money and are largely dependent on the goodwill of either their hosts or on donations from friends. Government is aware that this situation is no longer tenable, and it is time for them to start coming home. In arranging the return, Madam Speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs undertook to identify and register all Ugandans who got stranded abroad on account of the airport and border closures. So far, our missions abroad have registered close to 2,400 individuals who are stuck in 66 countries across the world. The list of these Ugandans has been uploaded on your website as Annexure 1 and the countries where they are. Madam Speaker and honourable members, government has carefully reviewed this problem and taken note of the following. The country has now built considerable domestic capacity to manage the COVID-19 epidemic in terms of structures, human resources, and citizen awareness. The number of stranded citizens who intend to return home are fairly manageable, 2,400, although they are spread across many countries. In arranging for our citizens to return, there is a need to ensure that both personal safety of the returnees as well as that of the communities they are coming to join is assured. In this regard, government has agreed in principle to allow Ugandans who got stranded abroad on account of closure of the airport and borders to begin returning home in a phased manner, starting with those who are in dire need. The exercise will be done within a framework to ensure both personal and public safety. Madam Speaker, our view is that the first phase of these returnees should be Ugandans who are stranded in distant places such as Europe, the Americas, West Africa, East Asia, and the Middle East. The reason for this being that they are more likely to be in dire need of help than those ones in our region. Besides, many of them already have air tickets, which they were traveling on before they were stopped, and would simply need to validate those tickets with available airlines. Additionally, honourable members, managing their arrival through the controlled environment of airport will also give us available experience on how to deal with even greater and larger numbers that may come by land around our country. In implementing this exercise, we should be cognizant of the capacity of our health authorities safely manage the numbers involved. The next phase will then be for these neighboring countries who are most likely to come by car or on foot through the borders. By the time we embark on this next phase, the necessary structures and safeguards will have been put up on the border crossings. Honourable members, in this regard, we have started on the following implementation activities. The concerned departments of government are now setting up specific requirements that they will need to ensure a safe and smooth implementation of this exercise. 2, my ministry has already discussed with some of the airlines still operating worldwide networks of routes around the world, such as Ethiopian Airlines, regarding modalities by which they can pick up our people from the different locations and bring them to a more central place, such as Addis Ababa, from where we can further arrange for special flights to bring them home. Number 3, we have also held discussions with the United Nations, which still operates many humanitarian flights across Africa, to consider placing some of the stranded Ugandans on these flights as they transit through Entebbe or as they bring in UN personnel. Members will be aware the airport in Entebbe is a UN logistics base, and the United Nations continues to operate several flights in and around Entebbe. Madam Speaker, today there is a meeting going on organized by our ministry between the United Nations and Uganda Airlines. United Nations wishes to hire Uganda Airlines planes to be operational within the region so that they can bring in their staff alongside our own Ugandans. As you know, Uganda Airlines planes are all sitting at the airport, and I think this would be a good business opportunity. The World Food Programme will also be operating some humanitarian passenger flights in the region, which we can take advantage of to return some of our people. We have additionally met with the International Organization of Migration, IOM, who have agreed to consider assisting particularly our immigrant workers who are stranded in the Middle East to return home. We are awaiting confirmation of their offer from their regional offices. The IOM has also agreed to support the government of Uganda in completing the ongoing modifications of the arrival area in Entebbe Airport. These changes are meant to make the facility compliant with WHO and Ministry of Health social distancing standards. I wish to inform you that the Department of International Development of the Government of the United Kingdom donated to Uganda a large marquee which will be used to expand the arrival space at the airport, and we are grateful for this offer by the Government of the United Kingdom. We have also engaged with the Government of the United Arab Emirates about assisting our immigrant workers who have lost their jobs due to economic effects of COVID-19 and now wish to come back home. In this regard, the United Arab Emirates has agreed to arrange Yeah. This gentleman is telling me that with the speaker's permission I could speak without a mask because I feel I can't breathe well. So I ask you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, lower it a bit.
Huh?
Lower it.
I will lower it a bit.
Yes.
And I will not face you. We have also, as I was saying, Madam Speaker and honorable members, we have also engaged the government of the United Arab Emirates about assisting our migrant workers who have lost their jobs due to economic effects of COVID-19 and now wish to come back home. In this regard, the United Arab Emirates has agreed to arrange for at least 3 flights to bring these Ugandans home, and as soon as our Minister of Health is ready to receive them, this offer will be utilized. Fortunately, many of these migrant workers already have air tickets, which were provided by their former employers. Finally, on these arrangements, the Indian community in Uganda has also proposed to arrange for a special flight to bring back both the Ugandans who are stranded in India and also some members of the Indian community who hold Uganda resident permits but got stranded while visiting their relatives in India, and we are examining this proposal. Honourable members, I wish to clarify that
Order, please.
I wish to clarify that by allowing Ugandans to return home, government is not reopening the international airport to regular passengers or passenger flights, because the risk of imported cases is perhaps higher even now more than before. Government will therefore permit Ugandans to return only on specially arranged flights, which will be cleared for that purpose. All the returning travelers will be required to meet their cost of own travel back home, as has been international practice for many countries. We have since established that many of our returnees already have, as I have said, air tickets, which they were traveling on at the time of closure of the airport, and they would now simply need to update these tickets with other airlines. The Ugandan travelers returning will be required to provide proof of negative COVID-19 test results before they embark on their journey. This will help to avoid infecting each other whilst on transit or on the plane itself. You may also wish to know that each country has instituted specific testing requirements prior to international travel. For example, in the United Kingdom, a passenger must test for COVID-19 at least 10 days before they can be allowed to travel through Heathrow. And in the United Arab Emirates, their timeline is 6 days. As of those who test positive COVID-19, they will have to first undergo treatment in their present locations before they can be allowed to travel back to Uganda at a later date. On arrival in Uganda, the returnees will again be tested and then taken to mandatory quarantine for a minimum of 14 days in a government-designated facility. The Minister of Health will ensure that by the time they are released into the communities, they have been certified as healthy. This exercise of returning our nationals will focus only on those who got stranded abroad due to the closure of the airport and borders. Not anybody who just wants to come and visit, because even the visiting won't be useful. If you want to come and visit your relatives and you have to spend 14 days in quarantine, it may not be worth it. Honorable, Right Honorable Speaker and members, you will recall that the recent situation in China, where we got several distress calls from some Ugandans who were being thrown out of their houses and denied services, mostly because the Chinese local authorities, especially in the province of Guangdong and the city of Guangzhou, had become very strict in testing for COVID-19 before anyone could access basic services. We all clearly remember the loud calls for their evacuation, which of course we would not undertake due to the lockdown worldwide. However, I wish to report that through our diplomatic intervention with the Chinese government, we are able to secure some reprieve for these Ugandans, and the feedback that we are getting now from them is that they are very relieved and going about their business as usual. Additionally, we have agreed with the Chinese government that this reprieve will continue to last at least throughout this period of the pandemic. Now, there are many Ugandans in China. Some are there completely legally, others not so very legally. And this registration and testing for COVID brought out so many of them. But through our negotiations, we have said that in spite of anybody's immigration status, they should be looked after and be given the necessary assistance, and then the legality of their stay can be discussed when this whole COVID-19 is over. You will also recall that the issue of our students in Wuhan and the desperate calls by the relatives for evacuation. The fact is that these students' problem was not necessarily about them returning home, but the rising cost of living during the lockdown under the understandable fear of contracting the disease. Government then took the bold and wise decision not to evacuate them, but provide a small financial package that has sustained them to this point when they are back at study. The feedback from these students in Wuhan is that none of them contracted the disease, and they are all safe and have resumed their studies. We therefore consider this a matter successfully resolved. We will therefore continue to work closely with the Ministry of Education and Sports to monitor the situation of all our students abroad and to give them all the consular support that they may need while out there. It is true that there has been some delay in remittances of their stipends, but the Ministry of Education is working hard to rectify this position. Additionally, I wish to call on the parents and the guardians of students who are privately sponsored to provide them adequate moral and financial support during this difficult time. Honourable members, I must re-emphasize that for us to succeed in safely returning our nationals who are stranded abroad, we need to prepare adequately for this exercise. In this regard, I request honourable members to fully support the Ministry of Health, the other frontline agencies, and my ministry to arrange for an orderly and safe return for many Ugandans who are stranded abroad. Madam Speaker and honourable members, I wish to conclude by first thanking all Ugandans who are stranded abroad and their families for being very patient, just like all our people at home here who have been patient as government deals with this very difficult and unprecedented situation. Additionally, I wish to say that the government is fully committed to ensuring the welfare of the safety of all Ugandans, both at home and abroad, and will continue to act both rationally, responsibly, and with regard to this pandemic.